Hello everyone, in this week's video I'm going to be drawing your original characters. Many of you have been requesting I do this again, so I posted on YouTube Shorts and my other social media letting you all know that I'd be doing this. This time around when I was looking through all the characters, I noticed that many of you were sending more spooky characters like monsters, vampires, ghosts, and so on, and it just so happened that the two characters that inspired me were both spooky in their own way. But before we jump into drawing, I want to say thank you to Life Makeover for sponsoring this video. Life Makeover is a liberating fashion game where you have the freedom to express your unique style, customize your virtual persona, experiment with various fashion choices, and dive into the joy of unlimited dress-up possibilities with fashion dye and do-it-yourself options. You can even design your own home, and I think this is absolutely adorable because so many of the items are interactive. Like I placed this pink piano and my character can play it, or I can play it. Decorating a house is fun, but I love when you get to actually interact with the items in the house. Life Makeover just released a new version, Iris Puzzle, that features the new costume Iris Scepter. I love all of the details. Alongside this, we are also getting X Starlight. Break away from palette limitations and reign your kingdom of colors. Dynamic Starlight Effect will unlock a brand new glamorous world. And the feature I'm most excited for is the new DIY function that lets you draw your own designs on the clothing. I think this is so cool and I'm really excited to experiment with it. If you want to try out Life Makeover for yourself, click on the link in the description or pin a comment to download Life Makeover now. So now let's see whose character I'm drawing first. This character is created by Renruji. Her name is Irene and she is 24 years old. I wasn't told much about Irene, but I really like her design and it looked like a lot of fun to draw. At first I was debating if I should draw her with the more button looking eyes or the red eyes. I really liked the pop of red, so I went with them instead. But I did kind of like the ominous look of her other eyes. And I'm going to be honest, the composition for this piece is going to be very simple. It's a simple headshot in front view, but Irene is slightly tilting her torso towards us and will have her hand up. The reason the composition is more simple for this piece is because the second illustration was very complicated and took a lot of time, so to balance things out I had to go more simple for this picture. Also, I want to clarify that submitting a spooky OC for me to draw was not a requirement when submitting a character. I don't want people to be confused because I never mentioned spooky characters in my post. Like I said, it just so happened that both characters I picked are kinda spooky. Maybe the time of year is influencing me. I picked Irene because I really liked her aesthetic. Also, this little chibi of her is adorable. I also really liked the web design around her eye. She just seemed like a very fun character to draw, and she was one of the designs I kept thinking of later in the day after I had looked at hundreds of characters. So as you can see, I sketched out the hand to have it kind of placed up on her chest, but then I noticed that Irene has super long sleeves that cover her hands. I know I could have technically had the sleeves drape off to reveal the hand, but I felt like it would be more true to the character to have the hand be hidden. However, my time spent sketching the hand was not wasted since it will come in handy later. It'll come in handy. After my rough sketch was done, I started doing the cleanup sketch, or line art. To be honest, at first I wasn't totally sure which one I was doing, but I decided to use this as my line art and started to treat it as line art. For this piece, I wanted my line work to have a rougher quality, so I used a brush with more texture and tried to be a little more messy with my lines, or I would try to add texture with my line work. I'm also allowing the lines to be thicker and more bold. That way it's easier to see the texture. Also, I don't often do this, but after this video, if you have time, I encourage you to watch last week's video. In that video, I made an art piece I'm really proud of, and I think is my favorite illustration of this year. So if you'd like to see the process for that, I encourage you to watch that video. I had a ton of fun making it, and I worked with traditional art supplies, and I don't do that super often. The video didn't perform very well, which I kind of expected because the drawing whatever the heck I want videos tend to not get as many views. But I really like how it turned out, so I thought I'd let you know about it if you didn't see it, and there'll be a link to it at the end of this video. Also in one of my previous videos, I talked about Inktober a bit and that I wouldn't be doing it this year, and I wanted to update you on that. And yeah, I finished one day and that's it. I kind of tried giving it a shot, so I did day 1, but I didn't continue after. I thought about doing Rin Spirit Arts prompt list because I always want to learn to draw different flowers. But yeah, I only managed to do one day and then I was too busy. I haven't even fully kept up with the diamond painting. I was trying to do a 20 by 20 square every day, but with my husband and I taking a trip and me needing to make things work around the trip, My groove was thrown off a bit because I had to do more work before we left for the trip so that I could be free those days. And then we came back from the trip and I had to get back into the groove of work. But I do have about a third of the painting done, so I am making progress. I am nearly past all of the yellow of Samson's hoodie, so I'm really happy about that. The just yellow squares are so boring to do. Anyways, once the line art was done, I filled in the base colors and added in this spiderweb pattern to the background. I did this as just a placeholder for now, since I plan to add more to the background later on. Like how I did with the line art, I wanted my shading to have a bit more texture to it. To accomplish this, I decided to use the thin gouache brush. This is often the brush I use for when I want to do digital painting, and thought it would work well for adding some texture to the coloring for this piece. I'm starting by just applying a muted purple set to multiply to different areas. Another thing I wanted to do was try to define the shapes more. I can sometimes shy away from doing this, but I had seen a picture where the shapes of the characters were more defined, and it was in kind of a painty style, and it inspired me to try to be a bit more bold with my shading choices. Defining the forms of the hair was fun. Irene has kind of curly hair, so it dips in and goes out. I was trying to define the areas that sink in with shadow, but where things really start to pop is when I'm adding the highlighted areas to the hair. Since the base color is already so dark, I can only add so much darker colors, but by adding some lighter values in, I can further define the shapes. Like I said, I'm trying to go with a more textured look, so I don't worry about blending out my brush strokes like I usually do. The process for this piece was kind of like a combo of my usual illustration style and my digital painting style. A lot of times the eyes are my favorite part of the process, but I actually really enjoyed this part. It was fun seeing the shapes take form and letting my brushstrokes be more free and loose. It's something I might want to try to play around with more in the future. I do pretty much the same thing for the clothes, and this is where having the sketch of the hand came in use. I decided to kind of define the shape of the hand under the cloth. That way we still get an idea of what's going on, and it doesn't just look like a jumble of fabric. Next I am moving on to the face and trying to define it more. It did feel a bit different from my usual since Irene is wearing heavy eyeshadow, and I don't often work with characters that are wearing heavy makeup. Speaking of makeup and stuff, at the start of the video we had a sponsored segment from Life Makeover, and I just want to say that I get offered to do a lot of different app sponsorships, but I don't often take them because they don't interest me, or I don't think it'd be something that would interest all of you. However, this game seemed really interesting. I really like the clothes and how customizable everything is. I only had to play the game a little for the sponsorship, but as I was working on capturing gameplay footage, I would find myself actually playing the game. So yeah, I actually think it's really fun, but I've always liked dress-up fashion games. I used to spend hours playing Barbie Fashion Designer on the PC as a kid. In that Barbie game, you could draw on the clothes. So I'm really interested to see the DIY function in Life Makeover. For the eyes, I wanted them to glow, and to give a glowing effect, I added some red to the underside of the bangs, the hair, and on the eyelashes. I also added a subtle gradient of red on the irises. Then, to make things more dramatic, I added a dark blue set to multiply that is clipped to the character's folder. But to still let the eyes pop, I erased some of the blue around the eyes and around the parts of the hair where I added the glow. And of course, we have to add the highlights. To keep them feeling less cutesy, I made them more sharp in shape. Lastly was the background, and I just couldn't quite make up my mind on what I wanted. I tried a variety of combinations, some with the webs, some without the webs, some with the lighter color on top, some with it on the bottom. I eventually decided on a black gradient on the bottom and red spider webs. I felt like this combo really popped. And so here's the finished picture of Irene. Thank you so much to Ren Ruji for letting me draw her. I really enjoyed drawing her design, and I hope you like this picture of her. The next character I'm drawing was created by Julie C. Their character's name is Charity. Charity is a phantom who lives in an old castle. She has no memory of her past and loves to dance in the ballroom. She wants to find a way to get out of the castle and be free. So let's start drawing Charity. Right when I read about Charity and saw her character, I was hit with inspiration and a strong idea of what I wanted to draw. This doesn't happen to me super often, so I felt like I really needed to draw her. As you can see, I started by laying out my idea of 3D models. I knew the scene was going to be complicated, so I wanted to have something for me to reference. My idea for the composition is that Charity is dancing, and behind her is a wall with a window. The wall also has beams that run up it, and on the beams will have some candle holders. I made the candle holders by using a chandelier model I had. Once my reference was done, I decided to start drawing. I wanted Charity's pose to look like she's dancing with a partner, but no one is there. So her arms are positioned in this kind of way. For her legs, they are positioned in a ballet kind of stance. The foot on the right will be in a slight tiptoe, and the leg on the left is in a turned out position. I wanted to have a good idea of the legs because even though she is wearing a full-length skirt, I plan to have the lower part of the skirt be translucent. I actually plan to have all of the character be transparent in some kind of way. Since she is a phantom, I figured I should try to make her come off as kind of ghosty. I did struggle with the skirt a bit. As you saw, I grabbed out a 3D model and turned it a bit to help me get an idea of how the skirt should be flowing. Since Charity's leg is kicked out a bit, I imagine she is turning to the right, so her skirt flows in this kind of way, and her hair will be doing the same. After getting the rough idea for the character, I wanted to get the background sketched out too. To help me out, I took the perspective ruler from my 3D model layers, and I'm using that as my guide to help me keep the perspective the same for all the lines. The background I'm drawing is very close to the modeled one that I made, but I didn't copy it exactly. I made there be a wood panel board that comes up on the wall, and I draw the window shape very differently because the model I used felt very complicated. I feel like I could get away with a more simple window. I was very nervous to draw the background, but it went a lot better than I anticipated. It definitely helped having the reference I made, so I had a strong idea of what I was going to be doing. The part that was the hardest is that I wanted the pattern on the floor to go in a way that didn't line up with the perspective. So like instead of making squares that are perpendicular to the wall, I wanted to make diamond shapes. I started by trying to do this on my own, and it was going okay, but the pattern felt really tight and busy. However, I got the idea to make another perspective ruler that matched the flow of these lines, and that helped a lot because now the lines will snap to this perspective ruler. It is the same angle of perspective, so it does still match the background. It's just the way my lines are flowing is different, if that makes any sense. Now that things were in place, I can work on cleanup and line art. Also, I filmed some of the line art with my camera, so we'll switch over to that footage in a bit. I mentioned earlier that my husband and I went on a trip earlier this month. It was a lot of fun. We went to see some of his family and we went to a pumpkin patch. At the pumpkin patch, they had a lot of different things you could do and different food stalls. I've never been to a pumpkin patch, so I thought this was really fun. There was even a corn maze, and I've always wanted to do one of those, so I was happy I got to do one. We actually didn't get lost too bad. My husband has a good sense of direction, so it didn't take us very long to find our way back out. I basically just followed him the whole time. One thing about farms, though, is that there were a lot of bees, and I'm scared of bugs, especially bees and wasps. They kept flying by me and landing on me, and when they did, I would just close my eyes and not move. My husband would tell me when they would leave and fly away. I was trying my best to stay calm and not like flail around. One part that was kind of sad about the trip is that the morning we were going to the pumpkin patch, we were getting ready to leave, and I decided to clean my glasses as I was getting ready. And as I'm cleaning my glasses, they decided to just snap in my hands. I make a gasping noise and my husband is like, "Are you okay?" And I reply with, "No." I have pretty bad vision and really need my glasses to see, so I was mildly panicking because I basically just lost my eyesight. However, we found some tape at the front desk of the hotel and taped my glasses back the best we could. It was definitely not super sturdy, but they did make it the rest of the trip, so that was good. My glasses are rimless, so they are pretty fragile. Thankfully, they have been fixed, and we actually just picked them up today. It's so nice having them back. I had to wear one of my old pairs from when I was a teenager. When my siblings saw me wearing them, they all said that they felt nostalgic and like I was a teenager again. Anyways, back to the art. I had finished the line art and base colors and was now on to rendering. Since this is taking place at night, I made all the colors more dark and muted by applying a muted blue set to multiply to the character and the background. And like I mentioned, I wanted the character to be transparent, so I went to the different color layers and slightly erased them to make the ends of different areas more transparent. I still wanted the character to be easily visible, so I made the transparent parts be around the edges of the character, like at the ends of the hair or her arms. I will also lower the opacity a bit of all of her layers, so she is overall slightly transparent. I wanted to add light from the windows on the ground. I wasn't totally sure how to go about doing this, so that everything matched up. Well, my solution was to draw lines coming off the windows and then have them be onto the ground, and then I would get rid of whatever I didn't need. And this seemed to work. It looks like it matches up with the perspective and the window. I don't know if this is how you're supposed to figure something like this out, but it seemed to get the job done. To make the character look more eerie, I added a blue glow to the outer edges of her, and I will also make the candles glow blue. I'll add their flame closer to the end of the process. For now, I just added the glow. Now you might be thinking, Becca, shouldn't the character be creating a shadow and shouldn't the light be casting onto her? And my answer to that is usually yes. But since this character is a phantom and isn't really technically there, she shouldn't really be affected by the light from the window or be affecting it and its casting on the ground. During this process, I really wanted to add a shadow under Charity to make her feel grounded. Since she is a phantom, she shouldn't really be casting a shadow because she doesn't have a physical form. It was weird not making her match the background while also trying to make her kind of fit in and match the background. I didn't want her to just feel slapped in and like she totally didn't belong, but I still wanted her to feel otherworldly. Oh, I also decided to change her expression to a smile. Since it did say that Charity enjoys dancing, I figured she would be kind of happy, but I still wanted there to be a slight feeling of sadness in her expression. For this process, one of the most tedious parts was definitely the skirt. To make the process cleaner and faster, I would select a section and then go in with 2 different shading colors. I would apply the lighter color with a larger or soft brush, and then the darker color with a smaller brush closer to where the folds meet. It's kind of funny because I often really like working with clothing folds, but for some reason flowy skirts often give me trouble and I don't really like them as much. But in this case it wasn't too bad. I had to use a lot of brain power to figure out how it was flowing and stuff, but I feel like it turned out decent, so it was worth it. Here's where I'm adding in her legs. I placed my skin layer under the dress layer and then just drew in the shape of the legs based on my sketch I did at the start. I made sure to fade them out with a soft brush so that they have a soft fade to them as they get closer to the torso and the skirt becomes more opaque. To add further dimension to the dress, I added some highlights. I roughly drew them in wherever I wanted there to be highlights, and then once I applied them, I blurred them out a bit with Gaussian blur to make them be softer and more faded. Next was shading in the hair. Because there were so many different parts for this piece, I thought it was going to take me a very long time to finish, and it did take me over 5 hours, but I got the coloring done faster than I anticipated. I think it took me a little over 2 hours to color this picture, which I felt like wasn't too bad considering the previous picture took me 1.5 hours to color. I think it didn't take me too long because yes, it does have a lot of different parts, but they are all really tiny, so the details don't matter as much. Compared to a portrait or a headshot, a lot of the details are very visible. Also, I just noticed I never added highlights to her eye. I guess I felt like it wasn't really needed. She does have a lighter eye color and her eyes are glowing, but I also feel like there being no highlight gives her eyes that kind of distant or void look, and I feel like that kind of fits her character. We are getting close to the end, and here I added a background to the windows. I just used one from the Clip Studio Paint library. I was starting to feel tired, and it's not the main focus. Then I went around and added some more shading and highlights to define things a bit more. I did this with the character folder turned off. Since the character is slightly transparent, I had to make sure to fully draw things behind the character because I wanted us to be able to see the background through her. I noticed I never shaded the candle holder, so I did that real quick and also added the blue flames. I did blue fire because it seems like it'd be a little bit more spooky than orange. Plus, I always think blue fire is really cool. To make the colors more dramatic, I applied a blue gradient map set to color burn. I also applied some teal blue to the character that is set to overlay to make her look more bluey and ghosty. To make the character feel even more ghostly, I applied a rim glow to her, and I also felt like I needed some rays of light to make things a little bit more fancy, so I added them in as well. This was feeling good, but I felt like it needed just a bit more, and at the last moment, I decided to paint in some curtains. It did take some finagling to get them to work and fit in since I was adding them in really late into the process, but I did get them to work, I feel like. And with that, this picture is now done, and here it is. This piece was definitely a challenge and pushed me out of my comfort zone, especially when it came to the background, but I am pretty pleased with how it turned out. I hope you like it, Julie C, and thank you so much for letting me draw Charity. I really enjoyed drawing her, she's such a neat character. And thank you again to Renruji for letting me draw Irene. Before we end, I want to say a super big thank you to my wonderful YouTube members and Patreon patrons for their support. It means so much to me. And thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!